Yes. Welcome to Go Long Live with Very Long 2. Don't forget the 2. I am joined live by Craig Campbell. How you doing, Craig?
Hey, what's going on, Barry? Good to see you, man. It's been a while since we've been talking together, but I know we've been
Yes.
chit-chatting on the phone and messaging back and forth about all the incredible sport things that are going on. I think today's got to be one of the most packed out day in sports around the world with the Olympics, baseball trades, with the NBA draft, and of course, a little news from Mr. Rogers out of Green Bay.
Absolutely. We got a lot to talk about today. We had the NBA trade, the NBA draft last night. We had the MLB trade deadline that's going on to 1 o'clock today. So we have a lot of stuff to talk about, but let's talk some Olympics first. I know you've been watching the Olympics. You've been following through. So what stood out to you the most in the Olympics thus far?
Oh my gosh, that's a toughie. I'll tell you what stood out the most for me is how excited I am to actually watch the Olympics. As a kid, it was something I really loved. And I'm finding that when I get home, I'm looking forward to picking up the Olympics and seeing what's going on. So many different sports. I was watching a little BMX yesterday, I believe. Pretty brutal little sport. They come down this ramp and they have to get the whole shot. And I saw all kinds of wrecks. And in fact, before they even started that BMX, they were showcasing a guy who was had been paralyzed from the sport. And then I go and watch these women's ride, and I literally watch women ride over, like they wreck, and then they just ride over the girls. It was really, I'm like, they got to fix that. I'm serious about it. There was something in that whole idea that it just looked too much. It's a little bit like motocross whole shot. But
dangerous.
Really
Very
not a
dangerous.
good thing. I happened to watch the USA. They beat the Dutch today in women's soccer. They went to double overtime or extended time, 2-2 at regulation, and then they went to penalty kicks, which, if you've ever watched penalty kicks, super exciting. So they won it 4-2, and it was really Raponi, who's been around there. Yeah, she's been there for a long time. And she ended up scoring that last penalty kick. Really, really exciting. They go on to the medal round or semifinals against Canada. And so possible gold medal in the works there for the women's soccer team. And other things I'll tell you.
Oh, go ahead. We were concerned about the women's soccer team because they lost in that opening round to Sweden, and then they bounced back. And like you said, Megan Rapinoe and the other girl, Alex Morgan, they're leading the way. And it's great. It's a great thing to see them bounce back. Maybe that can happen for the men's basketball team as well. But go ahead.
Well, it's just been really interesting. I watched canoeing, which is like kayaking, women's canoeing. It's a new sport this year. Unbelievable. I loved it. Exciting. I've watched a little dressage. You get a little bit of culture with some dressage. I don't know how they train those horses to do the things that they do. It's pretty incredible. But I'm really enjoying the Olympics on all kinds of levels. I think it's just because of the wide variety of competitiveness and, of course, the backstory for every single sport game. And it's all exciting. I just watched archery. Came down to the final, they had 4 sets or 5 sets and they were tied, and it comes down to one shot. And, when you think about that, all that training and it comes down to one shot, and you might miss it by this much, and your competitor's going on to the gold and you're not.
Absolutely. And I watched fencing, which is I guess it's the first person to get poked is the one who loses. But that was interesting. There's a lot of random sports. Handball I watched. I wasn't sure what I was watching, if it was like it's a mixture between soccer and basketball. So there are a lot of different Olympic sports that are really, really, really great. But there's been one, and you and I have been texting back and forth about this. There's a new one. This is the first year that we've ever had a 3-on-3 basketball tournament. How do you feel about the 3-on-3 basketball tournament, Craig?
Well, I love it. I love playing a little 3-on-3. It's a different game than, of course, full court or even half court game. Really, really enjoy it, except for the fact the very first game I watched, I think it was the U.S. versus the Japanese women's. And the Americans had it wrapped up, and the Japanese win it in the last minute. It was so frustrating to watch because you could just see that the little bit of inexperience maybe on the Americans team and working together, where the Japanese team seemed to have a little bit more set play. And I think that's so important probably in that that half court or 3x3 format. Yeah, I don't know where they are. Didn't the women go on to win? Did the American women go on to win the gold?
Yes, we did.
So that same team I saw lose figured it out. So yeah, I was excited to see that.
And that goes to show you that you can lose and then you can still bounce back and then get to the medal round and then end up with the gold medal. They defeated the Russian Olympic Committee. Not sure how I feel about the Russians finagling their way in because they were disqualified from competing this year because of the steroid allegations and everything that's been going on with that. But they are competing. There are Russian athletes competing as the ROC. So if you guys see that in the corner, just know that that's the Russians. But yeah,
what does that really mean, though? Could you explain to me? Because I don't understand. What is the Russian Olympic Committee as opposed to a country?
I guess this is like a loophole that Putin found, and and somehow they're still competing.
So we should have the Barry Olympic Committee. Oh yeah, the Bach. The Bach will be there in 4 years. 2024.
On a little bit of 3-on-3 basketball.
Now we're going to be in all kinds of different things. We're definitely going to put you in a kayak.
Now the rules to this 3-on-3 basketball thing, it really got me because it's a half court game, kind of like the Big Three with Ice Cube and his little league that he started or whatever. But this thing is they have to check the ball at the 3-point line. But after a team scores, first of all, they only get 1 point for a 2-point basket, for a traditional 2-point basket, and then if they're beyond the 3-point line, they get 2 points. So, but traditionally, when you play a style like that, the team who scores inbounds the ball again, and
right,
and so this is like once you score, the other team picks up the ball, they throw it back, and it's a very fast-paced half-court set game.
And because you have that 2-point versus 1 point, the 3-pointer is at 2 points. That's like 4 versus 2. You can really come from behind.
Yeah,
that's what happened with the Japanese. They hit a couple 3-pointers or 2-pointers, and then if you end up in 7 fouls, then the other team ends up shooting 2 shots as opposed to 1. So let's say you get fouled and you're going to the line for 1 because it's 1 point. If you are on the 7th foul, you can shoot for 2. So a lot of things can happen. You could be behind, I think, by 5 points going into a 21-point game, and they can make that up pretty quickly. So fast-paced game, a lot of fun.
A lot of fun.
I kind of enjoyed it. I haven't seen the men's play. I'm sure it's a much quicker game.
Yeah, it's got to be much quicker. I actually haven't seen the men's either. I just watched the women's, and I watched the final. It's only 4 players on the team. And, of course, we still know that we have the 5-on-5 basketball going on for the females. So most of our top athletes from the WNBA, the WNBA has a hiatus for about a month. Their last game was like on July 11th, and they don't pick back up until after the Olympics because most of their stars are, on Team USA. So I guess the reserve players that would have been on the 5-on-5 team ended up on the 3-on-3 team. They're still WNBA players, but yeah, just an incredible to watch these women, battle it out. And speaking of the women's basketball team, the 5-on-5 team led by Sue Bird and Breanna Stewart, they actually went on to beat Japan, and they won their 51st straight game. So they have been dominant for a long time. And all the talk that we have about the men's not being dominant, the men's game not being dominant, the women's USA basketball team, if you all get a chance to check them out, please check them out. They are balling.
Picking up the slack. The women are doing it in soccer. They're doing it all over the place. A little bit of rugby, too. That's something else I was watching. Women's rugby.
Women's rugby?
That's rough, yes. Women's rugby.
Do they play as hard as the men, Craig?
Unfortunately, the Japanese just getting crushed. I think they lost like 56-0 or something to Australia. And then the Americans I was watching, they were just getting blown out. The size differential was definitely there. You could see it. Those rugby players are something else. Not even wearing helmets or hats or ear things or whatever. I mean, they just seem so exposed and potentially with their faces to get knocked around. But kind of an interesting sport. I don't really understand it. There's a 10-meter and there's a 22-meter marker and some nuances that I just don't get. And I'd like to know more about it. I'd like to learn a little bit more about it.
Me too. They have that legendary like New Zealand team, the black team that they call in rugby, and they're like supposedly the best rugby team in the
or
world.
Fiji. I think Fiji's pulling
Fiji?
some serious team out of there. I think a million people in that country, and they're rocking it in rugby.
Yeah, and see what I think needs to happen is I think that some of these sports that we see that are Olympic sports, if they're more popular in other countries, we should have them as high school sports, and maybe it would draw more interest to the sports when the Olympics finally come around.
Hey guys, why don't you comment? Let us know where you're from. This is an interactive show, of course, and go long with Barry Long too. Loving it in the Laker uniform there. We got some incredible news, about the Lakers. The triple threat in the West with Mr. Westbrook coming out to the Lakers to play with LeBron and AD. That's going to be something special. What do you think? There he is. Look at him.
I'm absolutely excited for this team right now. I've been watching, the Lakers for a long, long time. And I've been watching Russell Westbrook for a long time. And he's been in the West. He was on Oklahoma City. He went to Houston Rockets. But I think that I felt like he got buried in the East when he went to the Wizards. He wasn't on TV as much as he was before. And I don't like Russell Eastbrook. I like Russell Westbrook. So bring him back out West.
There you go. He's from here.
Yeah,
he played in UCLA. He's a LA guy. I think it's got to be super exciting for him to be coming out here. I think he's the third MVP player that has actually played for 4 different teams in 4 different seasons. So he's been moving around looking for an NBA title. I think he has one. Does he have one?
He does not have an NBA title. He's looking for an NBA title, and this is the perfect place for him to come and get one. And a lot of people were talking on Twitter about how LeBron and AD and Russell Westbrook are not going to fit together. And I just stepped back and I thought about it. In the last 2 seasons, LeBron James led the league in assists, and then last season, Russell Westbrook led the league in assists. So this absolutely can work. And LeBron James is probably the only guy that has the moxie and the credibility already built up to have a guy like Russell Westbrook to fall in line. Now, Russell Westbrook is a strong-headed player. He has always been known to be mean to the media, to opposing fans, to opposing players. He's a very short temper. And we've seen, hey, how you doing, Becky Blackburn Garrett? She's in good old Palm Desert. Shout out to Becky. Thankful that you're tuning in.
Hey, Becky, thank you for joining us. I really appreciate you. I've run into Becky a few times around the good old Palm Desert, so it's fun to see names on the show. Checking it out. Let us know where you guys are from. Make sure you comment. Tell us, you can come on in here and give us your opinion about what you think about Mr. Westbrook coming to the Lakers.
We can pop him up live on video, can't we?
Well, I don't know. Let's give it a whirl.
But yeah, so back to Westbrook. So a lot of people are thinking that it's not going to fit because they're both ball-dominant players, LeBron James and Russell Westbrook, and they don't think that the chemistry is going to fit really well. But what I think it's going to do is it's going to allow LeBron James to not have to be that point guard, that decision maker all the time. It's going to allow him to take some possessions off offensively because we know he's going to have to work hard on the defensive end. And what it's going to do is allow him to sit down for a little bit because LeBron James, the last season that we watched the Lakers, every time LeBron James exits the game and goes and sits on the bench, the other team goes on a 10-0 run, a 12-0 run. So what we've been able to see with this trade is that finally LeBron James has some real help. And we talked about it before, Craig, that in order for you to actually win, an NBA Finals, you're going to have 3 or 4 guys step up. Like I'm going to, I say it's the big 3. You got to have at least the big 3, and then you got to have those off shooters that put those buckets in when you need them in a critical time. And of course, the Lakers have pretty much decimated their team. We got Gasol. There's really 5 players now, I think, that are signed. Yeah,
they're going to have to go out and find some people to complement what they put together. But, if you're a good shooter, you might be thinking about going to the Lakers because of all the talent that's there. Absolutely. I think Westbrook's going to be able to dump the ball down to LeBron in the paint a little bit more, too. I think he's going to do a little bit of a setup. And I think that's going to be a little bit stronger inside game that the Lakers haven't really had, even though we have AD. Now you got a double threat inside, double threat outside. And, of course, you got incredible defense that I think will be so important. What about the Nets, though? The Nets are putting together a pretty good team. They could be the team, too, depending on injuries and what's going on.
So the Nets are a 2-1 favorite to win the NBA Finals, and then you have the Lakers coming in second as a 4-1 favorite. And a lot of people don't think that the Bucks are the third favorite to win the Finals, but a lot of people don't think that the Bucks will make it back to the Eastern Conference Finals or the NBA Finals, because this year they wouldn't have even made it to the Eastern Conference Finals had the Nets not been hurt and decimated. So when we look at that roster, if you have a healthy Kyrie Irving, a healthy James Harden, a healthy Kevin Durant, then there's no stopping that team. They beat the Bucks by almost 50 points in the playoffs when they had just two of those guys. So I definitely think that the Nets versus the Lakers will be the NBA Finals. And honestly, Russell Westbrook, he played with Kevin Durant. He had beef with Kevin Durant because Kevin Durant left the Oklahoma City Thunder and went to the Warriors and didn't even tell him. He had to find out through the media. And then he played with James Harden in Houston, had problems with him. So it's kind of like he has beef with them. And they had their big three. We have our big three. Of course, we know Kyrie Irving and LeBron James had a little issues going on in Cleveland before they ultimately decided to split up. So it's kind of like a new rivalry. Like it's kind of an Eastern versus Western Conference rival. And as long as these guys stay healthy for the next couple years, I think this might be the NBA Finals that we see for the next 2, 3, maybe 4 years.
You were talking about odds and who the odds are on favorite to win, the Nets. Well, baseball, with the new trade, the Dodgers are the short odds to win the World Series, plus 340 with a couple of trades that they've made here in the final hour. This will be the last day for trades going into, the season. So we got our Dodgers rocking. We got our Lakers rocking out here in California.
Yes.
I'm excited about it.
Me too. I'm very excited. The Dodgers are nearing a deal for Max Scherzer, who is a top of the line starting pitcher, as well as Trey Turner, who's a shortstop and one of the fastest guys in the league. So Mookie Betts has been injured for my Dodgers with a hip injury the past 3 weeks or so. So we haven't really had a guy that can consistently lead off, but other than Chris Taylor, who is a utility player. So you add a Trey Turner in. You have a guy who can give Corey Seager, he can give Gavin Lux a break, Chris Taylor a break, and then he can consistently lead off for you. And then once Mookie Betts comes back, either Mookie Betts can move down to the 2 or 3 spot, or you could have Mookie leading off, and then you put Trey Turner at the 9 spot. So you get that when you play, in the World Series when you play against an American League team. So I really feel like this is a really good trade for us, and the caveat, so to say, is that the Padres were actually trying to acquire Max Scherzer, and everyone was talking about Max Scherzer is going to be on the Padres, and we know San Diego Padres and LA Dodgers have a rivalry for some time, and it's just that makes it that even sweeter that we were able to acquire Max Scherzer, knowing that they weren't able to get him.
Hey, you know what? I want to give a shout out to one of our sponsors, Kevin Crockett of the Crockett Law Group.
Okay.
He's out here in Palm Springs and also Irvine. He's a young man, 33 years old, and he is an award-winning accident attorney. That's what he does. I'm going to play a little commercial for you since he's been supporting us. Here you guys go. Listen up.
That's it. Did I say he collected over $30 million for Clarence?
Yes, sir. He is in the. I think he's in the $100 million arena now. So he's definitely utilizing. One of the things when I talk to Kevin is most of it now is technology. Used to work out the deal in the bar, maybe with the other attorney or the adjuster, and so many of those things have disappeared. It's all about technology, all about codes, numbers, communication, written communication. And as a result, he's actually been winning awards. He was telling me about a girlfriend and a boyfriend in the same accident, same issue. They end up breaking up. So they end up using 2 different lawyers. He got twice as much as her for using Mr. Crockett. So that is the CrockettLawGroup.com. You can reach out to him. And of course, we thank Kevin, for supporting the show. Sorry about that. Go ahead.
Absolutely. No problem. We love commercials. But yeah, shout out to Kevin Crockett and the Crockett Law Group. So we were talking a little bit about the Olympics, and I wanted to just highlight this girl right here real quick, Sunisa Lee. Now, we knew that Simone Biles had withdrew from the individual competition as well as the team competition for mental health reasons. And we support that fully here on Go Long Live. Mental health is a very serious issue.
Now, can you tell me what, give me a little bit more insight or let the people that are watching understand a little bit more. What exactly did happen?
Well, we're not really sure as far as what the exact mental health issue is. But we've just seen her, quietly sitting on the sidelines, and she's been supporting her team. But she struggled in her first couple runs, and a lot of people thought that maybe that was, adding to her mental health issues or whatever she's got going on. But yeah, we're not really sure if it's anxiety or what the deal is. I'm sure we'll get some more clarity once the Olympics is over and she starts having these interviews and stuff like that. But what she did was she withdrew from the competition, and that allowed another girl, Jade Carey, to actually come in, she was an alternate. So even though Simone Biles, a lot of people were saying she quit on her team, however you feel about that, whatever side you're on of that, she did allow other girls opportunities because Simone Biles has been the top gymnast in the world for quite some time. But what she did was she actually allowed for this girl, Sunisa Lee, 18-year-old girl out of Minneapolis, Minnesota. She allowed her to compete in the final, in the all around, and she actually won the gold medal. So it was a really incredible moment to see her. They had her parents, because there's no fans allowed in the stands this year at the Olympics. So they had her parents. They had a watch party back home in Minnesota, and her dad, who was he fell from a ladder. He was in a bad accident, I guess a work-related accident. Fell from a ladder. He was partially paralyzed. So he's been fighting back, and he's kind of been her support system and her motivation. So she really just went out there and did it, and they showed the families celebrating, and how much money parents of gymnasts and all these Olympic sports, when they travel all around the country and they have to get the top coaches and they have to pay for hotel rooms, the parents put a lot into it. So to see the parents really be, overjoyed to watch her win the gold medal, and to know that she was one of the biggest supporters of Simone Biles when Simone Biles withdrew from the competition. So she really does deserve to win the gold medal, and it was just an incredible moment to watch.
I mean, think about that. All your life, your dreams, and you are the backup.
Yeah.
You can't even come out and show what you can do. And in your mind that maybe you could still win the gold. And then here, out of a miracle of miracles, sad for one gymnast, but then the other comes in and wins the gold. I just don't even know, the level of competition is so high, and these athletes are so incredible. I don't know how anybody actually is the winner, the one person that is, can beat everybody else. It's pretty spectacular. I did watch her do a little bit of work on the high bar. It was really incredible. I think she scored like a 15.3 or something. It was the highest score that was there. And of course, I was rooting for her. Gymnastics is something that's always been around. The men weren't all that good with me growing up, but even the men, the United States have actually really improved through the years and have won gold.
Absolutely. And it was just so funny because we don't think of these athletes as kids, but that's what they really are. And they asked this girl after she won, they were like, "How are you going to go and celebrate?" Of course, she's 18. She's not going to celebrate with vodka, but she was like, "I just want to go home and eat pizza." So it was just a really good moment, and just so thankful that she had an opportunity to show what she can do. Now we had the NBA draft last night, and just quickly we're going to go over.
I know. I was going to ask you, was there really anything here to point out in the NBA draft?
Well, for me, Cade Cunningham going number one. I think that he'll be the only prospect on here that will really make an impact within the first year. You got a guy like number two that went to the Rockets, Jalen Green, who is kind of breaking the mold, and you don't see a lot of these college players go to college anymore for 1 year and be one and done. A lot of these guys are going to the G League now. They're going overseas instead of playing college for 1 year. I mean, because if you think about it, they're just going to college for 1 year. They're probably not going to class that often. They're not thinking about a 4-year degree. They're just thinking about, hey, I'm only here because I have to be here because that's the way the rules are. So these guys, a guy like Jalen Green, is kind of breaking the mold. He played in the G League this past season, declined not to go to college, and now he's made it to the NBA draft. And we might see a lot more people following the same mode. But yeah, there's not too much there, but a great moment that we saw in the draft. One of the top prospects coming out of high school. He played 1 year in Kentucky, Terrence Carter. He was actually killed in a car accident recently, and he was scheduled to be a top 10 draft pick. But what the NBA decided to do was they had his parents, they had his mother, and they had his sister and his little brother, and they were there sitting right table side. And the NBA selected him as an honorary draft pick so that he still got drafted. And it was a very emotional moment to see for the family. And it's just one of the things that the NBA always gets right.
I wonder if the rules with the NCAA and perhaps compensation that can be applied, if that's going to change up, and maybe because players were going to the G League and not going to college, might have added to some of the impetus for the NCAA to compensate so that kids can get an education and earn some wage for their skill and talent. And of course, the colleges are earning money. So I think it's only fair that there is a split. It's kind of weird when you go all the way back to, you think about some of these players that have been, they sold a couple shirts out of their car or whatever. And
then they violate protocol, or they're
banned. They can't, they get their stuff pulled. They no longer, get the awards that Heisman Award, gets taken away.
Oh man.
I'm glad I think things like that should change. I'm not really sure. It is definitely complicated. One of the things I did enjoy growing up is the Olympics was an amateur sport, even though, we were always told, well, the Russians really field a pro team, or, some of the dominant teams are pro because they're always together and they get paid anyway, even though they were classified as amateur, where in America, it was really an amateur sport. People were not paid to play. And now, the pros are in. It's a lot different game, NBA. I kind of enjoyed the amateur players playing, but things have definitely changed. And I do think that it's time for college players and those that are, being profited off of, that they should be able to share in some of those profits and be able to, cover their expenses.
Absolutely. And we like you said, when the Olympics was amateurs performing, for the United States, we saw a change when the Wheaties box covers started coming out and they started giving people like Bruce Jenner, endorsement deals. And we saw, professional athletes started to fill those roles like the Dream Team. So, endorsements is how it starts. And this is how it's starting with the college. They have passed a rule where they're allowed to take endorsements now. But my only issue with that, it's not really an issue. I'm just worried about the smaller schools and the little people, so to speak, that aren't going to be on TV as much, that aren't going to have the opportunities to have the endorsements. So I mean, it's going to be like the regular world, like the free market. I mean, this is if you're out here working, some people make more than others. So it's just going to be one of those things. But it'll be interesting to see how it develops and how it evolves, and maybe eventually they'll start paying these players some compensation, based on all the money that they get from the TV deals. But so we also have we wanted to talk some NFL news. We don't have much time here on Go Long Live with Barry Long 2 and Craig Campbell. We are live on todayscalifornia.com and CoachellaValley.com. But your guy Aaron Rodgers, he did show up to camp, and this is going to be our meme of the day when you show up to your job after 16 months of working from home, because this is how he showed up to camp with long hair, the Macho Man Randy Savage sunglasses, the office T-shirt with the backpack. I mean, he showed up like he's a real California dude, but
not even recognizable, really. Mr. Rogers is no longer Mr. Rogers.
Yes, absolutely.
He's gotten tough. So, interesting. He reworked his deal. I think he, what was it, 2023, and now it's 2022. I'm not sure what else changed other than he was able to voice his frustration and opinion in a public forum. I don't know. I think when it comes right down to it, and you're on the field, his competitive nature will be there. It's just disappointing to maybe know that Aaron, having been there for all those years, isn't happy.
Yeah.
It's not symbiotic. It doesn't feel like a team right now. But once again, things will change once that ball starts coming out of his hand.
And yeah, absolutely. And that's what cures everything. Winning cures everything. And I definitely see them, being successful because he's been able to compartmentalize different issues in the past and go out and still perform. Whether he had a problem with Coach Mike McCarthy, whether he had a problem with Coach Matt LaFleur this past season, he still is able to get the job done. And but we've seen this with Brett Favre and the Packers. Brett Favre wasn't happy in the end of his career, so maybe it's not an Aaron Rodgers issue, maybe it's a Packers issue, but we've seen another quarterback who was the starter for his team, and he had some issues with the organization, and that's Carson Wentz. He ended up getting traded to Indianapolis Colts to rejoin Frank Reich, who was his offensive coordinator in Philadelphia, and now he's going to be there, and it's very primed to be a top team. They were the favorites to win that division. That's been a tough division, up and down. You have the Texans win one year, the Titans have been pretty good the past few years, the Jaguars were good one year. So, but they were the prohibitive favorite to win this division this season with Carson Wentz stepping in. And we just had breaking news that Carson Wentz has gone down and he is out indefinitely with a foot injury. And he's been injury prone in the past. That's probably one of the biggest knocks that people have had on Carson Wentz. But this is not good for Indianapolis at all.
Well, Tom Brady did it, left and went and won a Super Bowl. So we know that sometimes when you're not happy, that the quarterback is such an important part of the NFL. You have to have a quarterback, in my opinion, to win a Super Bowl. I can't even go back and remember when it wasn't won by a quarterback in essence. Yes, there was a defensive play at the end or whatever, but it really comes down to if you do not have a world-class Super Bowl quarterback, you're probably not winning anything in the NFL.
Yeah. And then the last time that a team won the Super Bowl without a quarterback was probably my Baltimore Ravens, and when we had Trent Dilfer. And Trent Dilfer was serviceable. He could get the job done, but he definitely was the weakest link on that team. But you're right. Absolutely right.
Congratulations.
You're not winning.
Congratulations for winning.
So it's been fun. It's been fun. So next week we're going to break down divisions. We're going to go division by division and team by team and really dive deep into the NFL because we got the NFL season starting. We're also going to talk about some of these other trades that have happened at the conclusion of the MLB trade deadline. I know Chicago Cubs, they are big sellers. They got rid of Javier Baez today. I think he's being dealt to the Mets. They got rid of Kyle Schwarber. He's been dealt to the Red Sox. Anthony Rizzo has been dealt to the Yankees. So it is a tough day for Chicago Cubs fans, but we will break all that down next week here on Go Long Live too. Go Long Live with Barry Long too. And Craig Campbell, man, it's been fun.
You know what? I just want to know when you get traded, here you are in Chicago or wherever you are. And then next thing you know, the next day you're in Boston.
I know.
Where do you live? Where do you live? Where do you just pull up a rental, put your first and last month down and move? I don't know. You get a van, U-Haul. How's that work?
See, when you think about it for let's say, how our stars get traded and then maybe a prospect will get traded along with him, or some other, lower paid player along with him to fill salary caps or whatever the issue is. Now it's easy for a top guy in the league that's making top money to go and, get an Airbnb or something. But I worry about the guys that, that get included in the trade.
The Lakers, all those guys are going to Washington, D.C.
Yeah,
it's
where's Montrezl Harrell?
Just a little bit different of an experience there.
Absolutely. Like Russell Westbrook does not have a problem getting an Airbnb, but Montrezl Harrell might have a problem finding a place to live in Washington, D.C. But yeah, man, it's been fun. Craig, thank you for joining me so much.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it, Barry. It's a lot of fun. I always enjoy bantering about sports.
Absolutely. And we will be back next week. Remember to stay inspired, stay motivated, stay focused, and you are capable of anything. This has been an episode of Go Long Live with Barry Long too.